Hey everybody, we're going streaking this week.
Well, Greg, we're a little bit overdressed for that.
Well, not that kind of streaking. Streaks, as in winning streaks and scoring streaks. They're all the rage in MLS and here on Extra Time. Welcome to ET, everybody. I'm your host, Greg Lawless, alongside Shep Messing. A little later on in the show, we're going to look at some of our favorite MLS streaks that are going on. Not streakers, Shep, right? We're also going to take some emails, plus a return of everyone's favorite game show, Bench'em or Stardom. We're going to start, though, with a quick look at a fascinating week in MLS. I mean, all sorts of things going on. Chad Barrett scoring at will up in Toronto right now. Taylor Twellman from the Revolution, very, very hot. The Colorado Rapids, though, they can't seem to escape the rough seas out there in the West.
Greg, I'll tell you what, at this time of the year in Major League Soccer, everything is critical. So you talked about those players like Taylor Twellman and Chad Barrett, Juan Pablo Angel, right. Mike MAGEE for New York. Getting on a roll, it's critical. And then we talk about the other side of the coin, Colorado, they're just wasting away.
Well, they have a new coach in Colorado. Gary Smith is the interim coach after Fernando Clavijo was resigned, really. I mean, what's going on out there? What's not going right? And how do you think it's going to play out in the long run?
I think, Greg, first of all, I do think they have the talent on the team. Connor Casey up top. You have Mastroeni, Christian Gomez, Terry Cook, Colin Clark in the midfield.
They're loaded with talent.
They're loaded. So something must be wrong in the locker room. Something must be wrong with chemistry. That's up to the interim coach.
Are you thinking it's going to be John Spencer maybe in the long run? That's the rumor going around.
Well, I would think it's a natural. He's a fan favorite there. I mean, a beloved figure, and he's probably the next one to take over, but they have to try and do something now before this season wastes away.
Well, another team in the West that hasn't had a great run of late, FC Dallas. They won 2 games, now they haven't won in 2. They gave up a stoppage time goal to Jimmy Conrad of Kansas City. It was the 4th late equalizer conceded by Dallas this season. That means that's 8 points that they've lost so far since the beginning of the season. Where would they be with those 8 points? Top of the West.
And Greg, it's not only that you lost those points, it's how you did it. So the psychological component, Shellis Hyman has to keep those guys rallied. It's devastating when you give up late goals. How about Jimmy Conrad playing as a striker late in the game, getting equal?
He said before the season to us that he had to score 12 goals if they were going to win MLS Cup. He's got 5 so far. Now, Dallas, speaking of the Western Conference, they're trying to get to the top where Houston is still residing. Despite losing to New York this past weekend, they're right on top, which brings us to our next topic of the show, streaks. Because the New York Red Bulls' win over Houston extended their winning streak to 3 games, which is something that the Red Bulls haven't done since the very beginning of the 2007 season. So what's going right at Giant Stadium right now? They look like a totally different team.
Well, Greg, you predicted early in the year that New York would do well. I was only cautiously optimistic. The players that have come in, JIMENEZ got a start as a central defender, a young Mexican player. Mike MAGEE, all of a sudden, he's been in the league forever, the longest standing New York Red Bull player. Juan Pablo Angel is healthy and scoring goals. Rojas didn't play against Houston, but the players they've added have really helped this team.
Well, obviously this is a good streak for them, and it got us thinking about some of the streaks that are going on around the league. Everybody loves a good streak. They always happen. They build momentum. They put smiles on the coaches' faces, unless they're losing streaks, of course. But we're going to call those slides, not really streaks. So there are several streaks around the league right now besides the Red Bulls' winning streak. There's also, obviously you mentioned it, Mike MAGEE's 3-game scoring streak. Also San Jose's 6-game unbeaten streak. So, Shep, let me ask you, how does a streak come about? How do you get, say, off of a slide and into a good momentum?
Yeah, Greg, it's a great point, and if every coach knew how to put his finger on that button, they'd do it,
They'd
right?
be making millions.
But the toughest thing in this sport is to change momentum. When things are not going well, it's tough to turn it around. I think these positive streaks are a function of healthy, confident players. When you're healthy and when you're confident, that's what's happening to the teams that are doing well.
Well, it talks a little bit also about the parity in the league, because I figure the parity actually allows for more teams to get into streaks. They find their forms. Maybe other teams get injured a little bit. You hit a patch where you have less travel. You're not going across the country. And I think that plays into it a lot as well.
I also think the change in the playoff format has really been a dramatic difference. I mean, it used to be that the games during the season didn't count. I mean, just squeak into the playoffs. But I see the teams throughout the year playing with more intensity, more high pressure. Every game is critical.
I think we've seen that right from the beginning. Now, of course, there is the opposite side of any streak, the yin to the yang, the zig to the zag. The chutes to the ladders, if you will. Several slides around the league. The Galaxy right now, winless in 9 games. the team, they couldn't compose a storybook beginning for Bruce Arena's era out there.
I think the poor thing for the Galaxy is the roster is what it is. We've been talking about it since the beginning of the year. Really an unbalanced team in terms of skill on the ball going forward. Landon Donovan, David Beckham, Carlos Ruiz when he was there, but they never had enough on the defensive side of the ball. And Bruce Arena and Dave Sarakin, that's what they have this year.
Can they make any change? Will they make any difference, Bruce Arena? Will his coming in make a difference for this team? Will they make the playoffs? Let me ask you that.
Well, I think they have an outside shot. Now, here's the difference I think Bruce Arena will make. He will come in with a mindset and an aura and a character that will make this team get back and defend. I don't think he's going to let his holding midfielders attack as much. I don't think he's going to let them get out of shape. I think he's going to give them some fighting spirit, maybe too little, too late this season.
Well, if they have some fighting spirit, they obviously have the talent. They just might sneak into the playoffs. Time now for everybody's favorite game show here on Extra Time.
The Gong Show.
No gongs, Shep. This is Bench 'em or Start 'em, and we're going to start with Eddie Gavin, the Columbus Crew wide midfielder who had a fantastic game this past weekend, had a hand in 2 goals. Would you start him or bench him?
I'm going to shock you, Greg. I start Noonan. I bring Eddie Gavin off the bench.
Oh.
I think he's a better weapon coming off the bench.
Well, I disagree with you. I would start Eddie Gavin without a doubt. He has an understanding with Barros Schelotto, and he's starting to pick it up. Ziggy Schmidt knows what he can get on that right side from him, and I think he's going to have a second half of the season is going to be fantastic.
And that's why you and I are in television. We're not coaches.
That's absolutely true. So the second player we're going to look at, Houston's Stewart Holden. He had a very good Olympic tournament. He came back, and now is the question, does he start in the middle? Richard Mulrooney is also healthy. Do you start or bench Stewart Holden?
Yeah, I would put Stewart Holden in the starting lineup. I really would. I love him. He's got pace. He's got rhythm. He's got passing ability. He can go to goal. I think he needs to play 90 minutes.
I agree with you. Stewart Holden, start him. This is a guy who's got a lot of talent, a lot of energy, and he has the ability to trick some players in there and score some goals from the midfield for Houston. They're going to need him in the push toward the playoffs. So the third player we're going to look at, Greg Vanney, the center back for Los Angeles. Bruce Arena, the new coach in there, he still started him in his first try. There's some other players on the sideline. Troy Roberts, the Argentine Dominguez is there. What's going on there? Would you start him?
I'd definitely start Greg Vanney.
You would?
You need his expertise, his savvy veteran. I'd play 8 in the back and leave Landon and Beckham up front.
Well, I don't think they're going to do that. I actually would probably bench Greg Vanney just based on his performance so far this year. There's all this talk about you need that experience back there, you want that veteran leadership, but it just hasn't been there. I think you have Chris Klein on the one side to provide that leadership. I think you need somebody else in the middle, whether you're going to start Troy Roberts in there. Let's see Dominguez. Let's see if Eduardo Dominguez can be that player. Give him some games. We'll see what Bruce Arena does on that one. The last name we're looking at, Buna Kundul. He didn't make the starting lineup in Gary Smith's first coaching job this past weekend. Preston Burpo got the start. What do you say?
I think Buna Kundul is going to be, that's the operative word, a very good goalkeeper. But anytime when you're young and you start talking about Buna time and your game suffers, and you got a name like Preston Burpo, I mean, I like the move. Light a fire under Buna Kundul, make him win his job back.
Well, I'm with you on that one. I would bench him as well. You got to do something to get him going, get this whole Colorado team going, because right now, nothing is going right for Colorado. Let's look into the email box, and we'll start with a question from Isaac, who wonders, what American player in MLS most deserves a call-up to the US National Team?
Isaac, good question. I have 2 names for you. Kenny Cooper. He's got to be in the team. Big, strong, versatile. The U.S. is looking for their next great national team striker. And I'm going to throw Robbie Rogers into the mix. I think he's really developing another key player that deserves a call-up.
Yeah, Robbie Rogers certainly playing well for Columbus and had a great Olympics, I thought. Another player that I think the U.S. should look at, John Thornton, the midfielder for Chicago, scored a fantastic goal this past week against Los Angeles. He's showing his class in the midfield. And I agree with you about Rogers again. I think he's very important and a guy who, when you're thinking about the future of the national team, he's one of those guys.
And Thornton is healthy. I think that makes a difference.
That also makes a big difference. So another question coming in from Derek in Toronto, who asks, with the upcoming expansion, will there be any changes to the league schedule and the alignment of the teams? And I imagine he's asking questions about the number of games and even the single table.
Well, Derek, I have absolutely no idea. I mean, I can't figure it out. But the question about the single table, a lot of fans ask about it traditionally all over the world. It will never happen here.
Why not? Why isn't it going to happen?
Well, the first thing is geography, the distance, 3,000 miles,
Right.
California to the East Coast. It just doesn't work. It's not on the American landscape.
It's also not in the American psyche, and I think that makes a big difference too. We've always had these regional sort of rivalries as well, and
Right.
I think they play into something, the Norris division in hockey, if you will. So keep those questions coming. You can email us anytime at extratime@mlsnet.com. And don't forget to include your address and your shirt size, because if we use your question on the air, you'll get one of those very cool ET t-shirts. Time now for the Volkswagen Wow Moment of the Week and a little bit of Brazilian flair.
Some magic, Greg. It's Dallas playing away at Kansas City. Arosha hits an absolute rocket, in-step drive with the right foot. He's got time, he's got space. Wow, that's 36 yards away from goal.
Andre Rocha, the Brazilian, with a brilliant goal, but it's set up by the overlapping run from Adrian Siriu, a perfect Volkswagen Wow Moment of the Week. That's all the time we have on this week's edition of Extra Time, but we'll be here next week. Shep and I will kick it around.